This is not a rumor. This is fact. We are closing down the county recycling centers. Now, when originally these recycling centers were put up, there were no other recycling centers, and the county was the only game in town. Since then, in Kahului alone, there are at least 4 other recycling centers that I know of that are handling the same recycling that the county is doing. We're paying $750,000 to have companies do recycling, competing against the private sector, which is making profits and getting paid nothing. Now, as taxpayer, would you rather have the private companies be handling the recycle, or do you think the county should be paying your money to have the recycling competing against all these other recycling and essentially not being able to do other things? So when we analyze where are we going to economize, and we see that Aloha Shell in Kahului, Reynolds Recycling, which has a facility almost a block long, one wide, handling recycling, why are we competing against these companies and paying taxpayer dollars when the private sector is doing it and making a profit off of it? It only makes sense for us to save your taxpayers' dollars and be able to allow the private sector to go ahead and do the recycling.
So how many facilities will this affect in Maui County, and how many employees will be affected by it as well?
I'm not sure. We hire companies they contract to be able to run the recycling. The contract ends at the end of July, or at the end of June, excuse me. So at that time, we're just going to allow the contracts to lapse and not to reissue new contracts. Now, there should be very little break in service because there are available recycling centers in almost all the communities except for one that I know of, which is Hana. And in Kihei, right below the county recycling center, there's another recycling center, and it's private company that's doing it. Right up above by the wastewater treatment plant, the organic matter, the green waste, has a recycling center. It's time for the government to just get out of the way and allow private sector to handle the recycling, which they're handling as well as the county is.
So I know with previous administrations, a lot of funds had been put into establishing these centers, creating space for them, doing improvements to the land there.
Right.
What is going to be put in its place, or do you guys have plans for something else?
Well, the recycling centers that are in the parks will probably convert back to parks. The recycling center that's at Maui Community College will probably go back to the college. There's no reason for the county to continue the program, which we started when there were no other recyclers, and be continuing to compete when there are plenty of other recyclers that are doing exactly the same job.
Okay, and can you speak about the county's commitment to environmental programs and?
I don't think there can be any question as to what the county has been doing in the environmental area. We're going great guns to put in alternative energies, to save the cost of electricity, to save the biofuels, to the cost of bringing in petroleum products to create electricity. We're going through in a lot of areas, and we are trying to, even with our trash to energy program, where now we have a recycling component to it as well as creating energy, so that we're not putting tons and tons, hundreds of tons of trash and garbage into our soils. That is all going to be converted into a usable product, which is going to be creation of energy. I mean, when you're taking hundreds of tons of trash and you're recycling it into energy or other usable products, how can anybody question whether or not we're doing the job?